The story is told from a girl's perspective. Oh, come on. I fumed when I once again couldn't park properly. Dad told me, don't buy a barge. But no, of course not. Why listen to him? Now I'm suffering. Damn, and there's not even anyone around. I put it back into first gear and gave it a little gas, when suddenly, as if out of nowhere, a young man appeared next to me and asked, "Miss, do you need some help?" Yes, if you don't mind. Usually, I turn down help from strangers and say I can handle it myself. But this time was different. The stranger got into the driver's seat and in no time parked the car just right. Then he handed me the keys and said, "I hope you don't think I'm being too forward, but maybe I could walk you home? It's getting pretty late, after all." Honestly, it wasn't a long walk, and I could have managed on my own if it weren't for the two shady guys drinking right in the archway I needed to go through. As soon as we entered the courtyard, my gut told me that I should walk to my building alone from there. "Thank you, I'll go the rest of the way myself." He shrugged indifferently and said, "You're welcome." Glad I could help. I quickly made my way up to my apartment on the 4th floor and locked the door with every lock I had. I don't like coming home this late. By nature, I'm a bit of a coward. And to make matters worse, not long ago the news reported that 2 girls had gone missing. And their disappearances weren't connected in any way. In fact, they didn't even know each other. So, there's definitely reason to worry. When I told my mom about it, she immediately started trying to convince me to move to the village, saying that everyone knows each other there, it's all familiar faces, and there's no crime like in the city. But she didn't succeed. Not that she ever does, really. You couldn't drag me there even if you tried. Soon, my anxious thoughts were replaced by more positive ones. I spent almost the whole night thinking about that guy who walked me home. He seemed nice to me, and he actually helped instead of judging me, like most people do. Man, I should have at least gotten his phone number. Although, is there even a point? After all, he could have made the first move too. Or maybe he already has a girlfriend, or even a wife. Well, whatever, who cares? I'll get my own shot at happiness eventually. A couple of days passed since those memorable events. Yeah, memorable, because absolutely nothing ever happens in my life. And when I get bored, I either watch a show or call my friend. That friend of mine always has something to tell me. Around 8 in the evening, I was heading home with 2 big bags of groceries. I was in a real hurry because the handles had dug into my fingers so much that I couldn't even feel them anymore. And when I was almost home, suddenly a huge dog ran right up to me. She looked a bit like a wolf, big pointed ears, striking blue eyes, long black fur, and some pretty long fangs. Her beauty was both mesmerizing and frightening, but honestly, it was more frightening than anything. So I let out a piercing squeal right before dropping my bags on the ground. "Mort, come here," a stern male voice called out. Strange. I had the feeling I'd heard that voice somewhere before. The dog stood still for a couple of seconds, looked at me, and then bolted back to her owner. In the distance, a tall man appeared. Apparently, he felt embarrassed that I was lying there on the frozen ground. Groceries from the stores were scattered here and there. "Miss, are you sure you're in the right place?" he asked as he walked over. "Well, that depends," I replied. "Let me help you." As if I'd say no. I started to protest, but then suddenly froze for a moment. Standing before me was the very same young man who had walked me home not so long ago. "Is that you?" I asked suddenly. Well. I didn't think I'd see you again. By the way, I didn't introduce myself last time. Vadim, he said, and at the same time extended his hand to me. I grabbed his hand and finally got up from the ground. Sveta. Nice to meet you. Let me help you. After a couple of minutes, the products were placed back inside the bag. And just an hour later, my new acquaintance and I were sitting in a cafe, having a pleasant conversation. Everything was great, except for one thing. Getting home was going to cost me a pretty penny. For some reason, he picked a place to have coffee that was quite far from my house. Maybe he's married and doesn't want anyone he knows to see him. Or maybe. I don't even know what else to think. Vadim turned out to be a very interesting conversationalist. And before we went our separate ways, we exchanged contact information. But in the days that followed, Vadim only sent a single, standard "Hi, how are you?" My suspicions about his marital status were growing stronger and stronger. I thought that maybe I should just ask him directly, and only then draw any conclusions. 5 days later, we ran into each other again, this time in line at the grocery store. Vadim invited me to take a walk in the park not far from my house. And even though the weather wasn't great, I agreed anyway. When we were walking around the lake for the second time, I finally mustered up the courage to ask the question that had been bothering me. Vadim, tell me honestly, are you married? That question made him freeze in his tracks. He just stood there staring straight ahead, and I started to doubt whether I'd done the right thing. Why would you think that? Just because. Just, you know. At that point, I started explaining and told him all about my suspicions, holding nothing back. Vadim just laughed at that and said, "You really shouldn't have worked yourself up like that. And anyway, the best is yet to come." Back then, I believed him and thought I understood what he meant. But from the very beginning, he actually meant something completely different. Another Monday rolled around. How much pain there is in that word. Without thinking about anything, I dragged myself to work, just dreaming of having a cup of coffee, or better yet, two. As soon as I brought the mug to my lips, a notification popped up on my phone. How did you get to work? It was from Vadim. Fine. Why do you ask? No reason. You said yesterday that you didn't feel like going to work. So I was just curious. That message seemed pretty strange to me, since I don't remember saying anything about work. Although, maybe he's just attentive. We chatted all day long and only said goodbye when I got into bed. Good night, I texted him, and almost immediately got a reply, good night. He started popping up in my thoughts more and more often. And that's when I realized I'd fallen in love. In the morning, I didn't text first. I decided to let him have that chance. And while I was making breakfast, I suddenly got a message. Good morning. Are you about to have breakfast? Good morning. How do you know that? Honestly, that message made me a little uneasy because I really was standing at the stove frying eggs. But then the fear gradually faded away. After all, a lot of people eat before going to work, and I'm no exception. Yeah, I was clearly wrong about it being Monday, because today was already the day before. It was like the boss got a bee in her bonnet and took it out on the whole team, especially me. And as I was coming to my senses, sitting at my desk, I got another message from Vadim. Don't worry, everything will work out. And sure enough, my worries about the argument with the boss vanished in an instant. I just sat there in a daze, not really knowing how to respond. There was nothing in our messages about the office drama. So how could he have known? What are you talking about? I asked. Who knows? Maybe he meant something else. I mean your boss. I felt sick. I reread the last few messages over and over and realized my fears were confirmed. Are you spying on me? My question went unanswered for a long time, and only 40 minutes later Vadim replied, you're perceptive. I immediately blocked him and had no idea what to do next. It was quiet for about a week. To be honest, I thought he would start bothering me with calls from different numbers and messages from fake accounts. But no, he didn't make his presence known at all. Either he had left me alone, or this was the calm before the storm. I thought about his sudden disappearance. Days went by. Vadim never showed up again, and I finally felt at ease. One evening, as I was coming home from work, I got an SMS from an unknown number. You forgot to turn off the faucet. I started going over the whole timeline of this morning, but I couldn't clearly remember whether I had turned off the bathroom faucet or not. Damn it. I rushed home like a bat out of hell, and when I walked into my apartment, I heard water running in the bathroom. I thought maybe the downstairs neighbor had sent that message. After all, I had probably flooded him. But no, the floor was dry. So who was it? I didn't want to torture myself with guesses, so I just replied, "Who are you?" They didn't answer anything. They also hung up the call and then turned off their phone altogether. A wave of discomfort washed over my body. Overall, the situation was strange, and I still couldn't figure out how I had managed to leave the faucet running. The next day, I told my coworker about what had happened. Masha thought for a moment, then said, I think it's all just nerves and you need a break. It is the end of the year, after all. Yeah, a break wouldn't hurt. Come shopping with me. I've been meaning to go, but I just haven't had anyone to go with. After thinking it over a bit, I agreed. We went through every possible store and mall, bought a bunch of useless stuff, and only then went our separate ways home. After that outing, I felt much better and realized that now my paranoia was unlikely to ruin my life. Even though it was already around 10 o'clock, I took the metro home. I just wanted to make the day last a little longer and take a short walk on my way home. But as it turned out, I shouldn't have done that. As soon as I stepped into the archway, Vadim suddenly emerged from the darkness, walking toward me. I froze in place and didn't even immediately realize what I should do next. Meanwhile, the distance between us kept getting smaller. And when he was just an arm's length away from me, I immediately bolted and ran back toward the metro. On the way, I ran into a group of drunk teenagers and practically fell at their feet, saying, "Guys, please help me, there's a man chasing me back there." They exchanged glances, and then one of them asked, "What man?" So I looked toward my house and didn't see anyone. He must have left. "Guys, could you please walk me home? If you want, I can pay you." "How much?" A girl standing to my left immediately perked up. "Would a couple hundred be enough for you?" "Well, why not help a good person?" asked, apparently, the leader of the group. Everyone agreed, and we started walking toward my house. When I was standing by the stairwell, the guy helpfully held out his hand, and I placed 2 crisp bills in it. My mood was hopelessly ruined. My worst fears were confirmed. That creep really is watching me. What if? A chilling thought suddenly crept into my mind. If he opened the screen too, that means he was in my apartment. These thoughts made my temples pound. My vision darkened, and my hands went numb with fear. With a numb hand, I reached for the phone. "And who are you planning to call?" someone whispered right into my ear while grabbing my hand tightly. Vadim's face was the last thing I saw before I lost consciousness. I came to from the sharp smell of ammonia. A piece of cotton, soaked through with that stinky stuff, was being shoved right up my nose. I was so shaken by what had happened that I just stared blankly around, trying to figure out where I was. But it was so dark here that I couldn't really make anything out. "Get up, come on," Vadim shouted. "What happened?" I asked timidly. "That's none of your business. Here, I'm the one asking questions and talking to you. And you'll only do what I tell you to. And what if I don't? Oh, so you've got some spirit. Well, we'll see about that." With those words, that creep yanked me from where I was sitting and dragged me into another room. As soon as he flung open the heavy door, an unbearable stench hit my nose. The smell of decay made me throw up immediately. And what I saw still haunts my nightmares. There were 2 girls in the room. Not living girls. One was hanging on the wall. Her arms and legs were firmly fastened to it with either nails or screws. I don't know. The second unfortunate girl was lying on the rack. Her limbs were stretched so far that her skin was torn and bare bones were sticking out. Like the view? Well, that's what's waiting for you anyway. What? What? But why? He laughed, looking at me, and then asked, "Do you think I'm going to feed you?" After saying that, he threw me into an empty room with the words, "Rest while I'm still in a good mood." I curled up into a ball and started sobbing hysterically. Damn it, why? Why though? I knew he wasn't right in the head. I should have gotten out of that apartment sooner, not waited until the last minute. That sick bastard actually kept his word and left me without food. Only in the evening did he bring me a mug of water and an empty bucket. "Do your business in here," he said, pointing at the bucket. I greedily drank that water and felt my empty stomach fill up. But soon enough, the hunger made itself known again. I couldn't think of anything better than just falling asleep. Just sleep and escape from this whole nightmare. But honestly, my sleep didn't last long. I woke up to that idiot dousing me with ice-cold water, yelling, "Wake up. I've got something for you." "What do you want?" "Look at this beauty," he said, handing me a bowl full of cockroaches. The insects were alive and crawling all over that little dish. "And what do I need them for?" "What do you mean, what for?" "That's your breakfast," he announced with a grin from ear to ear. Without thinking, I kicked the bowl with my foot, and the cockroaches scattered all over the room like confetti from a party popper. "What the hell did you do, bitch? You might as well just kill me now, because I'm not eating that." At that moment, I honestly didn't care anymore when I would die. Today or in 2 weeks, it made no difference to me. It was obvious anyway that the psychopath was going to finish me off. In response to my words, he suddenly turned his head toward me, smiled like a madman, and said firmly, "You will." Then, in literally one leap, he was right next to me. With one hand, he grabbed me by the neck, and with the other, he braced himself against the wall. My head was banging against the metal bed frame like a soccer ball. I tasted the metallic flavor of blood in my mouth, and my teeth were flying out one after another. He squeezed my neck so hard that I thought he would snap it in a second. Never before had I encountered someone so strong. Without hesitation, he pried open my jaw and shoved those creatures into my mouth. "Eat, bitch, eat," she screamed. I felt something moving around in my mouth. Those filthy bugs were tickling my mouth with their little legs. I immediately started chewing them up and swallowing. They crunched between my teeth, mixing with blood, and I hurriedly gulped down that filth, just so I wouldn't anger this lunatic any further. Not enough. Eat more, he shouted, and another handful of bugs was shoved into my mouth. I was eating that disgusting stuff, tears streaming down my face. I was terrified, and so disgusted I could barely stand it. I had never in my life felt so helpless. That's enough for you. I'll be back in 3 hours, he cackled and closed the door. He didn't lock it, just closed it. I noticed that he always locked the door with a key, but this time he didn't. I don't know exactly how much time passed before the front door of the so-called bunker closed. There's not a minute to lose. I have to get out of here. I got to my feet and ran out of the room. I even managed to get close to the front door, but then that damn dog blocked my way. It just stood there between me and the door. So I decided to pet it and take it for a walk with me. I used to have a dog too, and I remember perfectly well how much she loved going for walks. Mort, let's go for a walk. Strangely, the dog just kept standing there, not moving. So I started looking around for a leash, but there wasn't one anywhere nearby. All right, I'll just open the door, maybe then he'll follow me out. But as soon as my hand grabbed the door handle, that creature sank its teeth into it. I screamed in pain and tried to shake the dog off, but it was impossible. And when it finally stopped mauling me, it triumphantly climbed onto my chest. I was looking down from above. Drool was dripping from the mutt's mouth right onto my face. And suddenly, its eyes. For a brief moment, its eyes flashed red. That moment was enough, more than enough. And then it hit me that something was definitely off here. The furry creature didn't get off me until its owner finally showed up. When he saw me lying on the floor, he immediately said, "And who do we have here?" "A runaway." "What's wrong with your mutt? Why isn't she like other dogs?" "Mort, that's enough." The dog instantly took its paws off my chest and went over to its owner. He gently patted her on the head, then said, "The mutt here is you. And if you're so eager to know, listen up. He and I don't live like everyone else. Let's just say, for the two of us to survive, we have to take lives from others. For example, I'm already over 150, and Mort is just over 40. And as you can see, we're not planning on dying anytime soon." "What are you talking about?" "And no, this is some kind of nonsense. That's impossible." "How did you get into my apartment?" "I just picked the lock." And yeah, some old lady came out of the apartment across the hall. She started yelling that she'd call the police. So I had to shut her up. "What did you do to her?" "Well, what do you think? The same thing I did to all of you. I smashed her head against the wall. Granted, it wasn't very original, but I had to act fast at the time. I can understand why you kill people. But what's all this for? Why couldn't you just kill me right away? And really, you torture them before they die." He laughed hollowly and then said something that sent shivers down my spine. "You see, I just like it. I love seeing how pathetic and helpless you are at these moments. And then I could kill simply quickly and without suffering. Creature, what a bitch you are." "Okay, don't get upset. By the way, it's already been 3 hours," he said, then pulled a hammer out of his bag. "In just 5 minutes, The fingers on my hands were broken. Every single one. And I just waited. Waited for this nightmare to end. For the past day, I've been feeling pain of varying degrees, and it already seemed to me that my body had adapted to it. But then my hands started to hurt unbearably. I tried to get some sleep since there wasn't much else to do here. Besides, sleep at least helps distract from the pain a little. However, despite all my hopes, my sleep was restless and broken. Early in the morning, Vadim left, taking Mort with him. I woke up while they were still getting ready, and then I heard the front door close. Apparently, they went out for a walk. I could have tried to escape, of course. But I just didn't have any strength left. My body was very weak from hunger, and my hands looked like two huge rubber gloves filled with water. I couldn't feel them and couldn't even move them. So I just lay back down on the bed, closed my eyes, and tried to fall asleep again. I'm telling you, for real. We believe you. Imagine if there really are corpses in there. I could hear boys' voices coming from the street. I listened closely. One of them said, "So, should we go check it out?" "Let's go." They headed toward the entrance. I mustered all my strength and went to the same door, only from the other side. When I got there, I saw that the door was shaking. Damn, it's locked. Well, I guess it just wasn't meant to be. Realizing they were about to leave, I shouted at the top of my lungs, "Guys, wait." There was silence behind the door. "Guys, don't leave. I've been locked in this basement. There are a few other people here. They're already dead. Please, save me." Silence. Just silence filled the entire space. I covered my face with my hands and started sobbing hysterically. Looks like they got scared and decided not to get involved. "Are you okay?" Suddenly, a voice came from the other side of the door. I realized that all this time they had been there and just didn't know what to say. "Yes. Please, call the police." My rescuers turned out to be 3 schoolboys. The boys were only 13 years old, but they had enough courage to simply call the police. The other 2 victims turned out to be those very girls who had gone missing. But as for Vadim, from that day on, it was as if he vanished into thin air. The whole city searched for him. The police literally combed every street. As for me, I broke the promise I had made to myself and ended up moving to my mom's village for good.